Time for another board game review, and this time we have the game Manara. This was sent to me by Lion Rampant Imports and is designed by Oliver Richtberg. Deep inside the green hell of Manara, you discover wondrously shaped fragments of an ancient structure. This makes your explorer's heart beat faster. Many thousands of years ago, there must have been a temple at this place. What might it have looked like? Would it be possible to reconstruct it? To accomplish this, you have to work together. Let me show you how to play. So Manara is a cooperative temple building game, and you're trying to reconstruct the temple together. And to do so, you try to fulfill the instructions that are on these construction plan cards right here, whenever possible. You use the columns, which are in the bag here, and then there are some that you start out with randomly in the camp. And you use those columns and temple floors, which you can see a big pile of over here, and you place them skillfully. It is important that you consider the consequences of your own game turns. Only then can your fellow players also be instrumental in the success of the building project. There's all kinds of mishaps, unfavorable construction plans. They can always basically screw you over, and the consequences, you have to build your temple higher and higher, and the higher you have to build, the more difficult it is. So in your camp here, you start out with 6 random columns. The temple floors are all here in a random pile in the quarry, and then you take the top 3 of that pile, which I already did here, and you have to place them so that they are touching each other at 2 points. So this is touching these 2, this is touching these 2, like that. And this is the temple base. Now, every temple floor has a light side and a dark side you can choose, but I just did light for these sides here. Here we have the level cards. And so the level cards tell you how many levels you need to build your temple at the end of the game. And the temple base, basically this base ground floor, does not count as a level. So if you're playing on easy, you would need to start with 3 of these level cards. These are construction plan cards. Blue is easy, yellow is medium, and red is hard. And then each player will randomly draw a certain number of columns. So if you're playing with, let's say, 2 people on easy, then you would take 7 columns each. Drawing from the back here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Now on your turn, you can carry out the following steps in this order. You may exchange columns with the camp, you reveal a construction plan card, you build as specified by the revealed construction plan card, and you replenish your columns to their full number. Make sure you discuss your steps with your fellow players, because this is a cooperative game, and it can be very crucial, not only on your turn, but to help and see what your other players are going to be doing. So to start out with, I can look at the camp here, and let's say I want a white and a red. I could take these 2 out, and I could replace them with a yellow and a black. This is also a way where if you think another player might need a specific color, you could put them in the camp so that on their turn, they could take them out from the camp. Then you look over the construction plans and you pick one of them that you're going to build. Since you're starting out, the best suggestion is to go with a easy blue card, and it looks like this. You always put your columns on color matching bases, so you can only put a yellow column on here or a black column on here. Now this card is very simple. All you have to do is put 1 column on any single base on the board. So I could put let's say a red one. A red one right here. If the card had a circular base on the bottom, that means you pick one of these floors and you have to put 2 columns only on that base. So I could do, let's say right here, I could go black and yellow. This card makes you move columns, and this one makes you move 1. So you would have to move 1 column to a higher level. So right now we don't have any higher levels, but let's say we had this one here. Then if I drew this card, then I would need to move one of my already existing columns. Let's say I had one here, and I would put it on top on a higher level. And as you can see, it's going to get a little bit higher. You may move freestanding or overbuilt columns. So honestly, if like I had a situation like this, I could move this. I could try to nudge it out and put it on top as well. But if it falls, then you're screwed. And that's a medium difficulty card. And here's another one. This one, you place as many columns on a single temple floor as necessary to occupy all bases on this floor. You have to fill every slot. So let's say I had 2 black pieces. Then I would choose this base and I would fill it in order to complete the condition of the card. This is a hard card, and it's one of the trickiest ones. You have to move a temple floor 1 or more levels up. So I could maybe pick this one, and I could put it on top of here. And if you already had columns on this level, you would have to move the columns as well. So it can be a very tricky card. That's why it's a hard card. Make sure your columns are always within the circle. They should not protrude beyond the outline of the base. You can place columns simultaneously if you want. You may also place columns on empty bases that have already been overbuilt by a temple floor. So if, let's say, you have a freestanding base and there's like an empty slot, you can slide a column underneath there. Any construction cards that you fulfill are discarded. Now, that's me showing you how to fulfill these cards, but oftentimes you pull a card, you might not be able to fulfill it, because for those I cheated. You know, with the selection of columns that I drew at the beginning of the game, there's no way I could have done any of those hard ones or medium ones. So let's say with this one, I didn't have enough columns to fill the base of a temple floor. Then what you have to do is get a penalty. You flip it over, and it becomes an additional level that you need to build for the victory of the game. So I had to do 3 floors, but if I fail this card, now we got to build at least 4 levels in order to finish the game. So you don't want to pick these medium or hard ones right away, because there's no way there's a high chance at least that you're not going to be able to fulfill them. You want to start with these easy cards, because for every one you can't do, like let's say you draw one and it's like, you got to put 1 column, but you only have reds or something, and there's no red spaces. Then it becomes an additional penalty floor that you have to build. Anytime you add a penalty construction plan card to the level cards, you may exchange the entire camp. So if I didn't like the colors here, let's say they were like a bunch of yellow ones or something, I could take them all and replace them with new ones. And all those old columns go back inside the cloth bag. If you have placed or moved columns or temple floors during your failed attempt at fulfilling a card, they stay in place. Don't undo anything. And if any fell over, just set them up again in the same place. So as you can see in this picture here, this is a 3-level temple so far. The base level doesn't count, but 1, 2, 3. Now, if fulfilling construction plans wasn't hard enough, every time you place a column on the last free base of a temple floor, you immediately interrupt the execution of your construction plan card. So let's say this was here, and I put the last base on here. Ooh, that almost fell. This is completely full now. That means I immediately take the top base of the stack, and I have to put it somewhere. Now, the way you place it depends on what construction card you're currently working on. So if I was fulfilling this card, this has light or dark, so I can choose if I want to put it on the light side or the dark side. But let's say I was fulfilling this card instead on that turn. This only has light. That means I have to put this on the light side. So now I add it to the temple, so I'll put it here. Ah! Okay, you didn't see that. I'm doing these one-handed while also trying to do this, so just bear with me. Obviously, during the real game, you need to be much more careful. I put it here, and that was totally the same as before. Shut up. Now that's one option you can do when you fill a base. But let's say I filled this base. Let's see if I can put these on without it falling to the ground. All right, let's say I finished that base and I take this and I don't want to put it on top. Let's say I think it's gonna fall down. I have the option then to extend the base of the temple, because then you have more room. So what I could do, as long as it's touching 2 points of the base, I can put it like somewhere like here, or maybe like this. That might be better, because you want these these columns closer to your other columns. But if you choose to do that, then your current construction plan flips over and becomes another level you need to build up. So as you can see, this can build up higher and higher. Like now I have to do 5 levels. Once you've placed your temple floor, whether it's putting on top or extending the base, if you have to place columns because of your construction card, you can place them on the newly built floors if you'd like. Then at the end of your turn, you replenish your columns. So if I use 2 columns, I would draw 2 new columns from the bag and add them to my hand. Now, if any temple floors collapse at any time, the game ends immediately. So it is imperative that you are careful when you play this game. The game also ends if any columns fall over and they can't be put back on their previous place. If just 1 column falls, it's not going to be a big deal, as long as you can put it back. Now, besides the temple collapsing, the game can also end if a player can no longer replenish his columns to their full number, meaning basically you've run out of columns in the bag. If you've used up all your construction plan cards, or if you don't have any more temple floors. What that means, though, is that the game does not end unless one of those 3 conditions is fulfilled. So even if your temple is the correct number of levels that you need to win the game, if you haven't fulfilled any of those conditions, you still have to keep going. Or if one of those conditions happens and you haven't built your levels up to the required number of levels, then you lose. So like I said, if you run out of columns or construction plan cards or temple floors, you can check to see if you've won. If your temple is the correct number of levels, in this case it would be 5 for our example, you would win. Now, the game does provide a handy list of what the types of cards are and how many there are in each category. This way you can kind of plan, like, oh, should we go for a red card? Ooh, I don't know, if we draw this card, we might have to do a penalty floor. Or, oh, we should stick with blue ones or yellow ones. This gives you sort of a layout of what you can expect from the construction plan cards. And there are a lot of helpful tips that the game provides, like talking is very important, spreading out your temple base at the beginning broadly is very good because you need as much room to work with as you can. You always want to pay attention to your free bases, like if you go, oh, you know, we're running out of this color, or there's no way we're going to have that color, you got to be careful because remember, if one of these fills up, you got to place a temple floor. And if you ever draw a card where you need to do something, like put a column somewhere, and you don't have that, that's another penalty floor. And that's pretty much the game. Just stack up your temple, try to get one of those game-ending conditions, and hopefully by the end of the game you have built the correct number of levels for your temple. I need to put this yellow tower on, the yellow column on here successfully, and then we might win. But if it collapses... Ah, you fucking... Well... That's Manara! So this game is like a cooperative jungle Jenga, and I love it. It's super tense throughout the game, and you've really got to work together as a team instead of just randomly placing columns. There is a lot more strategy going on than you think just looking at it. At the beginning, you're like, oh, I'll just put this yellow one here, this black one here. But as you play, you're like, oh, wait, oh shit, like, if I put this here and we draw this card, then we have to do another penalty floor. So there's a ton of strategy for a pretty, like, silly stacking game. Great strategy. You've got risk management with the cards, and the concept of having to build higher if you fail them is clever. Brutal, but clever. Making sure you have a good variety of colors in your inventory is key. There's a lot to consider beyond your own turn. You gotta look at your teammates, you gotta look at what columns they have and go, how can I make sure their turn also goes smoothly? It's not like Jenga where you're selfish. It's like, oh yeah, this is good for me, but I want to make sure that everyone else can survive, otherwise we're fucked. It's thrilling watching your temple grow higher and higher. Sometimes you're flabbergasted that it hasn't fallen down yet, because sometimes, in order to keep going, you like put a temple floor on like 2 columns, or sometimes even like 1 column. You're like, God, I really hope this doesn't fall down. It's genuinely exciting. One issue I have with the game is there are a lot of luck factors you gotta consider, whether it's the temple floors that you're picking up and putting on top of the temple, or the colors of the columns you get can be like, sometimes you could just get really shitty colors, or especially the cards that you draw, those construction management cards. Some of the cards are brutal, and you sometimes get the worst possible card on your turn. Sometimes, no matter how carefully you plan all your turns, those cards can just ruin your life, because every time you fail, you gotta add another level. The card where you have to move an entire floor is absurd. It's very, very challenging. But even with the luck involved, and usually I don't like luck in games and I get really bothered by it, that in itself is part of the fun for this. Working together to get past those absurd, sometimes absurd challenges is really, really engaging. And you just want that temple to keep going despite all these sometimes unlucky factors that keep hitting you in the face. It's a great, tense party game, and the idea of cooperative jungle Jenga, if that sounds fun to you, trust me, it is as fun as it sounds. I thought this was a blast.